All right, Krystal, what's on your radar?
Well, folks, not sure what happened here this past week, but I am sorely disappointed. I mean, I have been promised a fascist authoritarian coup directed by Vladimir Putin himself for 4 years now, and I'm getting a little impatient waiting to see how it all goes down. In fact, I was told this election wouldn't even happen because Trump would cancel it or at least postpone it indefinitely. I was told that an elaborate plot was being hatched with scary words like disinformation and misinformation and deep fakes to rob poor innocent Joe Biden of his rightful victory. I was informed in no uncertain terms that Attorney General Bill Barr had masterminded a devious plot to confiscate ballot boxes, or that Trump would force the FDA to inject all Democrats with toxic hydroxychloroquine or something. It's hard to see how this, a hastily arranged presser in the parking lot of Four Seasons Landscaping, fits into their evil genius plan. Sure, Trump is launching legal challenges and refusing to concede, but even state media outlet Fox News doesn't really seem to have their heart in the game.
We want every legal vote to be counted, and we want every illegal vote to be...
I just think we have to be very clear. She's charging, the other side is welcoming fraud and welcoming illegal voting. Unless she has more details to back that up, I can't in good countenance continue showing you this. I want to make sure that maybe they do have something to back that up, but that's an explosive charge to make, that the other side is effectively rigging and cheating. If she does bring proof of that, of course, we'll take you back. So far, she has started saying right at the outset, welcoming fraud, welcoming illegal voting. Not so fast.
You know, one of the greatest lies of the Trump era was that this dude was remotely up to the task of being some Hitlerian figure. Now here we stand with every network, including Fox News, having called the race for Biden. And how has our orange Mussolini reacted? By doing what he always does, saying a bunch of ridiculous crap, sending out a bunch of stupid tweets, and not a whole heck of a lot else. It turns out that Matt Taibbi was exactly right when he wrote this. The words we see slapped on Trump most often, like fascist and authoritarian, nowhere near describe what he really is, and I don't mean that as a compliment. It's been proven across 4 years that Trump lacks the attention span or ambition required to implement a truly dictatorial regime. He might not have a moral problem with the idea, but 2 minutes into the plan, he'd leave the room, phone in hand, to throw on a robe and watch himself on Fox and Friends over a cheeseburger. There's no constitutional crisis coming with dueling sets of electors, let alone some military-backed coup in which Trump attempts to stay in the White House beyond his term. The latest terrors gripping resistance liberals are rather revealing, and frankly just how pathetic they are. We're supposed to be deeply concerned for the future of democracy because Trump fired the former Raytheon lobbyist who was running the Department of Defense. The horrors. And he may fire the former George W. Bush admin guy who's running the FBI. Outrageous. My favorite, though, is that all of their elaborate fascist coup plots have actually collapsed down to this. Some GSA Trump appointee is refusing to sign a letter acknowledging Biden's election. Inconceivable! What if they have to wait a week or two before they can decide in earnest whether they're giving Pete Buttigieg VA or UN ambassador? The country hangs in the balance. The people who have stoked the most outrageous fears about Donald Trump have been completely wrong. His words are outrageous, of course, and certainly his administration has engaged in some truly damaging acts with consequences to people and the planet, which will reverberate for years to come. The cruelty at the border, orphaning children, opening the Alaskan wilderness to logging, accelerating the transfer of wealth to the top, and of course, outright lying about coronavirus to save the stock market. But those in the media who have terrified millions with their Donald Trump ghost stories and murder mysteries, they destroyed the ability to tell the real story of the worst parts of the Trump administration. Not to mention that their unhinged conspiracy theories certainly turned off some of the voters that they might have won over with a different approach. Allow me to save you the suspense of what's going to happen next. Trump is going to tweet some more and do some more pretend legal actions that are laughably incompetent at best and possibly completely non-existent. He'll never fully admit defeat, which will, of course, enrage all the powers that be to no end. And, of course, he should concede. It would be good for the country if he did, but it's also not quite the same as the military-backed coup or outright authoritarian end of democracy that we've been repeatedly promised. Instead, when the time comes, he won't admit defeat, but he will leave. And it's very likely he'll go start his new media company where he'll continue to chirp from the sidelines to millions of his supporters who, by the way, will never believe that Joe Biden actually won fair and square. Of course, the media will do their best to convince these millions that the election results were accurate. quite the opposite of their role last time around when they spent hours and years trying to convince the public that the results of 2016 were not really fair or just thanks to Russian meddling. And I will admit, it is indeed a dangerous state of affairs that the media has so destroyed their credibility over years that tens of millions would trust the evidence-free word of the ridiculous Trump over the assurances of elite media. The failures of any of the wild conspiracies of the Trump era to actually materialize will just be one more nail in their coffin. And by that I mean, all the people who got Trump the most wrong will be greatly rewarded with big raises and primetime shows. And that is a truly scary story of Trump-era America. And Sauer, no sooner did I finish writing this radar that a memo went out from Bill Barr that everybody freaked out about. Oh my, he's directing them to investigate election fraud and there's no proof, etc. And I mean, look, obviously he's trying to mess around to please Trump, but you go and read the memo and all it says is, if there is election fraud, you can investigate it. That's it. There's no like directing anyone to do anything. It's just like, hey, if there's election fraud, you can investigate it.
Well, what's wrong with that? I mean, don't you welcome an investigation? Like, I'm sorry. Look, they don't just make up facts, or I mean, maybe they used to, but if they do, we'll certainly call it out here. Yeah. And actually, won't be that difficult in order to disprove if they release some report. And this is the part which is driving me crazy about all of this, which is that the truth is that these people, the media and so much more, after Russiagate, after Hillary, after fake news, after Russian disinformation, etc., they have no bearing to tell anybody not to question an election or others. And do they have any idea why 70% of Republicans don't trust the election results and don't trust them whenever they're trying to walk them through everything that happened? They just want you to sit down and shut up and accept results. And look, I don't accept the fact that there was like massive, widespread electoral fraud. But I think there was probably some fraud, as there always is in an election. And if we want to uncover that, and if we go and we find that in a DOJ report or something, fine by me. Isn't that a better thing? That would actually help a lot of people accept the results of the election. And yet they just don't want to go down this road. And it speaks to something that you pointed out, which is that this whole conception of Trump was wrong from the beginning. And all of it was wrong. You did a radar here a couple months ago. You're like, this guy's as American as apple pie. Mm-hmm. And it's true. And the truth is they just don't want that to reflect on their failures, because that's what it is. He's a living embodiment of their failure.
That's it. I mean, look, there's been no evidence of any significant fraud. And the names, they had this list of names in Nevada that they were like, oh my God, these people voted and they don't live in the state. Turned out to be military members. Like, all of their crap has been ridiculous so far. And if that changes, we will certainly bring it to you here. But that's the point. There's never any reflection of like, wonder why they don't trust us anymore. Must be because they're wrong and they're stupid and like, it's all on them. Or, hey, wonder how we got this like crazy, insane person president of the United States. Wonder how that happened. Must be because it's all the voters' fault. Like, it's all on them. Nothing to do with us, nothing to do with the fact that we got the Iraq War wrong, that we got the financial crisis wrong, that we spent years on Russiagate. Nothing to do with that. Let me just, get my raise in my new primetime show and tell you more about how wrong and terrible you are. That, to me, look, Trump is not going to do some military coup, and none of these people are ever going to admit that they were wrong, by the way, in their assessment of him.
There's never a cost.
Never a cost in their daily, like, oh my God, it's the end of democracy. And that stuff, there is a cost to society, because you have millions and millions of Americans who felt that the country was literally at risk every day. But the real crisis is this slower moving erosion of trust in absolutely every institution. It is why you have all these conspiracy theories flourishing. It is why you have, these pitched battles sometimes in the streets. It is why things feel so ugly and so torn apart. And the media is as complicit in that as absolutely anybody else, and they will never see that or admit
They
that.
lie to you every single day. I mean, they're like, oh, there's no elite conspiracy. You ever heard of Jeffrey Epstein? You ever heard of Jeffrey Epstein? Like, you ever heard of the Iraq War? The media doesn't cover up lies. It's documented. Go look at Judy Miller. Look at the stuff that they fed her and that she published in the New York Times and that was pumped all over cable news. I mean, these are facts. This really did happen. And it did. I'm not gaslit. I've been gaslit, and so many others have too, because they just want you to believe them, and I can see them in their preening coverage of the networks. I saw Jake Tapper yesterday being like, for any Trump person out there who's not accepting the concession, like, don't you at least accept that you'll have reputational damage whenever you're out there in the marketplace? It's like, what are you on the Truth and Reconciliation Commission now? Like, what are you doing? Trying to set up gatekeepers and making it so that you can't be employable if you don't go along with Jake Tapper's standards? That's insane. We can't live in a country like that, especially after Russiagate and so much more. And I just see this happening everywhere, and it's just elite decline, institutional decline all across the map.
Yeah, and that is the scariest, much scarier than any like tweet that Donald Trump is going to send out, is that trajectory of American life.
Yeah, that's right.
A lot more rising for you after this.